Children, this is Stalin Ramachandran, your social science teacher. Today we are going to see a topic: intellectual awakening and socio-political changes. So under that we are going to start a topic. Under that we are going to see other heterodox sect. Under that we are going to see a first topic, Ajvika. So what is called Ajvika? You would have studied about Buddhism, Jainism. You would have heard about what is called Buddhism, what is called Jainism. So what is called Ajvika? The period that produced Buddhism and Jainism also witnessed the birth of sect known as Ajvika. So Ajvika is one of the very old religion, and it's one of the philosophical and monastic life. It says about the philosophical and monastic life, and which is very old religion. But we don't have evidence for this Ajvika. But many books were wrote about this Ajvika. In Tamil we call them as Asivagam. So it's a very old religion, but we don't have a clear view on this. We don't have a clear books on this, but many books have said about Ajvika. So we will see one by one. The Ajvika was founded by Gosala, who is a friend of Mahavira. Mahavira, you know already. Mahavira is a person who founded the Jainism. Buddha is a founder of Buddhism, and Mahavira is a founder of Jainism. And this Gosala is the founder of Ajvika, who is a friend of Mahavira. For some time they were together. So Mahavira and Gosala were together. Later Gosala moved away and founded Ajvika sect. So Ajvika considered as a atheistic sect. Ajvikas rejected the karma theory. So Jainism and Buddhism, they accepted the theory of karma, but Ajvika, in Tamil we call Asivagam, is completely rejected the karma theory, which postulated that the condition of men is determined by their past actions. Gosala argued that act of charity and piety can in no way influence this finality. So Ajvikas had a small presence in southern India. Many of them, they say Ajvika religion was found in a very small presence were there in the southern part of India. Under the Chola, a special tax was levied on them. So people, those who have followed this particular religion, they were also collected tax during the Chola period. 3 Tamil texts. The Mani Meghalai of Buddhist, Nilakesi of Jains, and Sivanyana Siddhiyar of Saivats contain the outlines of Ajvika doctrine. So in this 3 texts you can find many places about Ajvika. Next we are going to see about Gana Sanghas. There were 2 distinct forms of government at the time of Mahavira and Buddha: monarchical kingdom and Gana Sanghas. They were the 2 types of forms of government. First one is monarchical kingdom and Gana Sanghas. We are going to see about Gana Sanghas. The Gana Sanghas provided a polity alternative to the kingdoms. As I said, the Gana Sanghas provided a polity alternate to the kingdoms. Polity means nothing but politics. Vedic rituals and the rules of Varna were not followed. During the Gana Sanghas period, no Vedic rituals were followed by the people, and the Varna system were also not being followed by the people. The Gana Sanghas consists of either a single clan, such as Shakyas, Kolyas and Mallas, or a confederacy of clans, such as the Vrigis and the Vrishnis. confederate located at Vaishali. So Gana Sanghas had two strata. Gana Sangha had two strata. Strata means levels. Gana Sanghas had only two levels. First one is Kshatriya Rajakula. The Kshatriya Rajakula is called as ruling family. The people, the kingdom, the king who rules is called as Kshatriya Rajakula, ruling families. And the Dasa Karmakara, the slaves and laborers. Only two levels were there during Ganasanga's period. First one is Kshatriya Rajakula, which is called as the ruling families, and the Dasakarma, the slaves and the laborers. Next, we are going to see about rise of kingdoms. In the 6th century BC, witnessed the establishment of kingdoms. So oligarchies and chiefdoms, as well as the emergence of towns. Oligarchies and chiefdoms, as well as the emergence of towns. From the largest of chiefdoms emerged kingdoms. Many tribes of Rig Vedic period, such as Bharadas, Pasas, Tritsas, and Turvasas, passed into oblivion, and new tribes such as Kurus and Panchalas rose into prominence. So this is what happened during the rise of new kingdom. The new kingdom was raised in 6th century BC, and 16 Mahajanapradas are listed in the Buddhist text. They were giving importance to linguistic and cultural commonly prevailed in the Janapradas, where in the Mahajanapradas different social and cultural groups lived. With the emerge of kingdoms, new kingdoms are emerging. The struggle for supremacy among different states occurred frequently. So during the rise of new kingdom in various states, so every kingdom tried to prove their supremacy among the states, among the kings. Sacrifices such as Rajasuya and Ashwamedha were performed to signify the imperial sway of monarchs over their rivals. So if any king, if any king wants to capture other state or other village, or if they don't want, another kingdom to grow, they were doing Ashwamedha. Ashwamedha is one of the their kingdom will do Ashwamedha Yagam, and they perform to signify the imperial sway against the rival monarchies, kings. So you would have heard about Ashwamedha Yagam. In many, historical films, this word will be used, Ashwamedha Yagam. Next, we are going to see about growth of royal power. So how the kingdom got power, how their powers got improved or increased. The king enjoyed absolute power. The Sabha of the Rig Vedic period ceased to exist. So during this period, the king enjoyed absolute power. So he is ultimate power, he is the decision maker, he can do anything and everything where he had absolute power. The Sabha of Rig Vedic period ceased to exist. So they didn't do anything. The Sabha was being exist, and during that period. The Satapada Brahmana describes the king as infallible and immune from all punishments. So, which they say about where the king has absolute power and human system, and where he will not be punished for any other wrong which he has does. He has a power where he will give punishment to others, where he had ultimate powers. The growth of royal powers was reflected in the enlarged administrative structure. The powers of a king, even that has been reflected and enlarged to the administrative structures. So he has been delegated his power to other administrative structure. So they had an administrative, structure. In that administrative structure, the king was assisted by a group of officers, Bugaduga officers, Bugaduga called as collector of taxes. The person who's a collector of taxes called as Bugaduga was there in that administrative structure. Sutta, charioteer, was there. Aksharapa, superintendent of gambling, was there. Shatri, chamberlain, was also there. Gorikartana, that is king's companion in the chase. Pulogola, that is courtier. Takshan, carpenter. And Ratakara, chariot maker, were also be there in that administrative structure. In addition to that, there was a military officer like the Purohita, chaplain, the Senani, army general, and the Gramani, leader of the village, were also there in that administrative structure. Later Vedic period, Gramani, who acted both as civil and military officer, was a link through which the royal authority was enforced in the village. So Gramani, initially he was a leader of the village, later on who acted both as a civil and military officer. Gramani, this word is one of the Tamil word, we are using it now. Gramani, we use this word. Gramani was a use those days, and Gramani is a person who is a leader of a village. So along with that, the king administered justice and occasionally delegated his judicial powers to Adhyakshas, the royal officials. In the villages, Gramya Vadin, village judge, and Sabha, court decided the cases. So if there is any cases were there, any theft or any other murder case were there, this court and the village judge was taking care of that, and punishments for crime were severe. So punishments and crimes were given by this village judge and court, which we call as a court is called as Sabha. So there during that time the punishment were really severe. So after that we are going to see the rise of Magadha kingdom. The polity followed in kingdoms was different from that of Ganasangas. So after Ganasangas, Magadha kingdom rose, and they had the unique way of ruling the people. Kingdoms operated with the centralized government. It's not like Ganasangas. This Magadha kingdom, they operated the government with the centralized government. Political power was concentrated in the ruling family, which had become a dynasty, with succession becoming hereditary. So after this Magadha kingdom, like if father was a king, again the son will be a king. Like that hereditary got started. So it started continuing in the Magadha kingdom, which was even a continuity of various other dynasty. There were advisory bodies such as Parishad, ministers, and Sabha, advisory council, were also been there during Magadha kingdom. The Sabha collected the revenue and remitted it to the treasury in the capital of the kingdom. So the Sabha was collecting, what is called Sabha? Sabha is called as the advisory council, was collecting the revenue from the people, and it makes as a treasury for the country in the capital of the kingdom. From that treasury, that money has been redistributed for the public expenses. That money only was spent on maintenance of army, and they were giving salary to the state officials with the help of that revenue which has been collected by the Sabha. Of the kingdoms mentioned in the literature of the period, Kashi, Koshala, and Magadha are considered to be powerful. So in this Magadha kingdom, these three people were very much powerful. Kashi, Kosala, and Magadha. Bimbisara was the first important king of Magadha. In the Magadha kingdom, Bimbisara was the first important king. Many other kings were there, but he was a first and very much important king of Magadha. Bimbisara succeeded in establishing a comprehensive structure of administration. So Bimbisara had his own ideas on structuring the administrative powers in the country. Village was the basic unit of his administrative system. So he has made a village was a basic unit for the administrative system. Who made this? Bimbisara had made this. Each village was brought under Gramani, headman, who was responsible for collecting taxes and remitting them to the state treasury. So each and every village there was a Gramani, whom we call as a headman. He is a person who was collecting the taxes from the general public and remitting them to the state treasury. So this plan was done with the help of Bimbisara. He is the one who is executing these plans. Officers appointed to measure the land under cultivation and assess the value of crops were to assist the Gramani in his task. So officers were also been appointed in order to help Gramani, where Gramani he is the one who's responsible for collecting the tax. In order to assist Gramani, many officers were been appointed. Land tax, Bali, was the main source of revenue to the kingdom. The common people of that village has to pay Bali, that is called as a land tax. Today also we have a land tax. Today we have a land tax, water tax. Same like that, during those days we had a land tax where the government was collecting with the help of Gramani, and that was a main source to the kingdom, to the country. Have a look on the next point. Ajatashatru, the son of Bimbisara, is said to have murdered his father and ascended the throne in 493 BC. Ajatashatru is the son of Bimbisara. So in order to capture the kingdom, a son is murdering his father and he is becoming as a king. He continued his father's policy of expansion through military conquest. So he didn't have any new policy, where he was continuing his father's policy, like how Bimbisara was ruling. The same policy was continued by Ajatashatru. The capital city of Magadha was Rajagriha, which was surrounded by 5 hills. So capital city of Magadha was Rajagriha. And that Rajagriha, which was surrounded with 5 hills, that particular place was surrounded by 5 hills, providing protection to the kingdom from external threats. So that 5 hills was protecting the kingdom. Ajatashatru strengthened the Rajagriha fort and also built another fort at Pataligrama on the Ganges. Ajatashatru died in 461 BC and he was succeeded by 5 kings. Finally, he also been succeeded by other 5 kings. So he had the same plan, and the structure which was introduced by his father Bimbisara was followed by this Ajatashatru. All of them followed the example of Ajatashatru by ascending the throne by killing their parents. After whosoever become a king in that particular kingdom, in the Magadha kingdom, everybody started doing the same thing, where how Ajatashatru murdered his father and he became as a king. Same thing to be continued after Ajatashatru. People of Magadha appointed the last ruler's viceroy Shishunaga as the king. Ruling nearly for half a century, Shishunaga dynasty lost the kingdom to Mahabhatmananda, who founded the Nanda dynasty. After half a century, Shishunaga dynasty, and the dynasty also lost with the Mahabhatmananda, and Mahabhatmananda founded a new dynasty called Nanda dynasty. During Bimbisara, it is called as Magadha dynasty. After Ajatashatru, his son, it is called as a Magadha dynasty. After Magadha dynasty, Shishunaga dynasty came into a picture. Then after defeating Shishunaga dynasty, Nanda dynasty, which has been founded by Mahabhatma Nanda, has also been created. The Nandas were the first of non-Kshatriya dynasties to rule in northern India. So this Nanda dynasty, Mahabhatma Nanda, were the first of non-Kshatriya. Till then, Kshatriya people were ruling there. Mahabhatma Nanda was one of the first non-Kshatriya dynasty which was ruling in northern India. So with that, this topic is over. We'll continue and we'll see you in next class. Thank you.